way that they could understand. So at a really young age, I remember my parents kind of saying, hey, you might want to think about this as a career. This would be a possibility for you. In terms of player development, God, I was really lucky. I grew up with around some really, really good coaches. Dustin Gray, who's currently, he runs his own program, Playmakers Basketball Club. And he's working with a handful of NBA guys, and he's worked with some WNBA players and some players who play overseas. And he's just a phenomenal player development coach, trainer. And then Jason Glover, who's currently the associate head coach with USC. I get to come up and kind of be around them and see how they do things. And both of them are very much player development focused. They have other skills, but so it was lucky. We have this weird coterie of people from Sparks, Nevada, who ended up in professional basketball somehow. I don't understand how it happened. Aubrey McCreary as well from that area. Had some years in the league. And so anyway,
Do you remember, Walt, when I said to you, when you said you were from Sparks, Nevada, I said, we're going to skip that part because we can't have anything Sparks related, coming into the league. So
that's right.
I
Reno.
did say that.
I forgot. Reno. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
that's
generalize
right.
it.
So yeah, it was just kind of a natural fit from there because of the kind of the way that I saw the game and the way that I had to see the game in order to be able to play at the level I wanted to. It translated well with kind of some other skills that I noticed that I had when I was a kid.
And it was something that we identified, as we were starting to have more players home from overseas. Lindsay was done playing, Rebecca was done playing, Simone got to the place where she was done playing, and we wanted to give our players a chance here in Market to be able to, to get some basketball. We can't give them games, but one of the things I liked was taking our players and challenging them in ways that they had not been challenged before from an individual standpoint, individual skills. I remember some of the early days before we had Walt on board. We had a guy by the name of Gannon Baker who does skill development all over the world. And I remember the day that we were working on floaters. Lindsay Whalen and Rebecca Brunson shooting floaters, and they were god-awful. I mean, they were just terrible at it. And I just remember sitting on the inside, just chuckling, going, this is exactly what I wanted. Because sometimes you get to a certain point, you think you know everything. And so we just try to, challenge them in ways. And so I thought, in seeing that with Gannon and with our players, it became really important when Stephanie shared Walt's strengths. And I thought, this is a perfect time for our team. This is exactly what we need. We need more development. We've got maybe some old dogs that can learn some new tricks, but then we also have some players that are not drafted in the top of the draft, or maybe free agents that we acquired that needed more work to help our team continue to be successful. And so that was what was really, really appealing about Walt. I think we align in many ways. Walt doesn't aspire to, like a lot of guys, being very honest, aspire to the NBA. Well, I'll try to get in on the WNBA and then scooch over, to the Timberwolves. And Walt is not somebody that's clamoring to do that. And so just aligns with us in many ways. And I think for us, it's been a really good partnership. It's been really important offseason for Danielle Robinson. Maybe take us through a little bit about your approach with Danielle, maybe how you break down a person's game to say, okay, this is what I need to work with them on. What is it? Do you have a macro look at watching them play during a game and then go, okay, they need some help here? Or do you have more of a kind of I call micro look at specific skills that will then translate to the game?
I think you can probably guess that my answer will be some of both. With most players, I try to look at what the team needs from them. So independent, before I was with a team, I was just doing this by myself. The biggest thing was, well, what does your coach want you to do? What is your system? The ways that they can succeed within that system are the place that you would start. For a player like Danielle, who's been so successful in her career and coming in with Lindsay and some of the other players here that just obviously had such wonderful careers coming in, it's a little bit different because you're not taking somebody. With Leja, it was kind of like I got to start from scratch and I got to kind of mold her. With Danielle, you've got these strengths, and those strengths can also hinder her in ways sometimes. So it was a way to maximize those strengths was one of the things we looked at, and then also to add to her game in a way that could use those things in a way that she hadn't before. And so with a player like Danielle, it's a little different because of her physical gifts. Then with Leja, it was much more of a focused on the game itself, focused on little nuances of the game where she could kind of carve out productivity. With Danielle, her gifts will allow her to have productive games regardless of that. So the goal has been to kind of take those natural gifts and maximize them.
So you're not just a guard whisperer. I think you have talents with all positions, but so far the theme is guards. But I know one player you're really interested in diving into more is Sylvia Fowles. James Wade, who departed for Chicago, spent most of his time with Syl, and we saw her development, and she emerged as the MVP, and I thought had another great year last year. Yeah. What do you see with Syl? What is it you're excited about that you want to help her going forward as she continues to want to be a better player?
Yeah, I think with both Syl and Danielle, there's kind of a special vibe getting to work with them on a day-to-day basis. They're both so fun to work with. Syl, I think it's going to be more of what you were talking about with Gannon, with Lindsay, and kind of challenging her to do things she's never done before. I think, when we said this when I was with Foki and D-Rob on the podcast, that the brain really craves novelty. And I think when you've been doing something for so long, especially Syl, who just gets the heck beat out of her down low every game, pulling her away from the basket a little bit and working on things that she can do that kind of add, a new flavor to what she does. I think her bread and butter is always going to be down low. It's always going to be around the basket and mixing things up down there. She's so gifted. But I think the things that we can add to her game are a little bit more awareness of passing, and maybe put her up on the elbow and give her some opportunities to drive a little bit, and different footwork and ways to create contact, that it's not her always getting the contact initiated to her and so on and so forth, and do it in a legal way. I hope the refs are listening, that we're going to be doing this legally to create contact. But, to carve out space for herself so that she doesn't feel like she's always being picked on down there by 3-4 people. Maybe she can sever an angle and get into somebody's body and create enough space so that she can be the one initiating the action.
I think it's the coolest thing about our players, and it's probably true for a lot of WNBA players, but I know ours, and someone like Syl, who's 33 and on the other side of that hump in terms of her career, wants to learn new things and is eager, and that's something I know that meshes well with Walt, and we're excited. Congrats to Walt on his promotion.
Thank you.
To be now. It was full time before. Let's not get that wrong. It was full time. I don't know the best way to say from third to second, but essentially a promotion. In our league, unfortunately, when you have more than 2 assistant coaches, the third assistant is left off of travel, and I really look forward to a time when we don't do that, because I think that we need the third assistant. I like the developmental nature of it. It worked out perfectly as we had hoped, as we scripted it. When James was able to be hired as a head coach, that was the plan for Walt to be able to move up. We invested in him for 2 years, and now he's ready for a bigger role. Meaning, the player development piece is very important. But in season, in addition to player development, you have a scouting responsibility. And so you have 34 games. And between Walt and Shelley, they'll divvy up scouts. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of sleepless nights and preparation and sometimes jubilation from the scouting, the scout report being followed and working. And then there's other nights that maybe you go, well, we probably didn't have the right plan, or maybe they didn't follow it as well, and you have those disappointing nights. But the up and down, there's just, I just have enjoyed that so much through my career, my 10 years as an assistant, and so there's days that I'm envious, about what our assistant coaches do. And
you can take over whenever you want.
But yeah, I'm excited for Walt to step into that new role, and I always say being uncomfortable means you're growing, and we're going to try to make you uncomfortable this year. But we're happy to have you, and we'll just keep building this thing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, Jim, you want to come back on?
Okay.
Thank you, Walter. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for stepping in.
Thanks for having me.
We'll do it again if you don't mind.
That sounds great.
Awesome. So we were both in the barn on Sunday.
We were.
It is. It's been quite a season. Lindsay starts 12-0 as a rookie coach, and I think that was a little unexpected. And then just as people get really excited, they go 2-7 in the Big Ten, and people will go, okay, we don't need to pay attention this year. And now, probably the most surprising development, at a point where it would have been easy to say, okay, just getting this thing rolling. It's all about recruiting. They win 4 straight games, all against pretty quality opponents, and a thriller on Sunday against Northwestern, a pretty good Northwestern team. And now they're 6-7 in the Big Ten. They're heading in the right direction, and it was loud in there on Sunday.
It was, despite the weather,
yes,
because it was not easy to get to, and I think there was actually quite a few late arrivals. But the game, the game itself was absolutely worth kind of going through the treachery of the weather. I got to that point. I don't know. It was about the fourth quarter when I said, I didn't like the stats in that Northwestern was shooting over 50%. I think we were shooting under 40%. And we had turned Northwestern over quite a bit. But then all of a sudden, we weren't turning them over as much. And so that if you weren't turning them over, they were shooting above 50%. And so they closed that gap, and they took the lead. But I love the way that the team responded. And I just love what Lindsay has done. Like you said, that the 12 straight probably built a confidence, externally, maybe internally, that maybe they were a little better than what they really were. They handled every opponent that they had, but those opponents weren't, maybe what the Big Ten was to bring. Now, they did lose some games in the Big Ten that they absolutely should have won, but they just weren't playing well. And that happens when you win 12 straight, that slippage that we always talk about, that happened maybe a little more confident. And then you forget the details that got you, those W's. And they won some hard games in a non-conference. That Syracuse game was a signature win. That was a great win. The San Diego game that they had to gut it out, it was, I think, like 42-40. It was a crazy, low-scoring game. And but I like what Lindsay has done in that as they struggled, 2-7. And she said, we can't stay the same. We've got to do something different. And she made a great decision to move Pitts back to the 4 and play a little smaller, do more pressing. You've got Bella at the top of their sort of 1-2-2 three-quarter court. She gets her hand on a lot and deflections and just hard to play over the top of. And so I just have enjoyed watching the adjustments that Lindsay's made. And sometimes it's easier to do nothing. That's the path of least resistance, but Lindsay made a really quality move. And Lamke is a good player, a good teammate. You can see it. She wants to just win. So I think she's handled the move very well coming off the bench. And I didn't love the preseason predictions, if you will, that had Minnesota 3rd or 4th in 2 different polls. And I didn't love that because they're without Carly Wagner, who scored 2,000 points. And so I didn't necessarily see that. I thought maybe middle of the pack. But so that, that's a lofty expectation to try to fulfill. And I think they've handled it well, and they're hanging in there.
Reminder, thanks to our sponsor, Successful Marketing Group. Go to successfulmarketinggroup.com/Cheryl Reeve for your free action plan. And check out Shelley being the sports queen.com and use Lynx Coach Reeve for 15% off the cover price, including their new 5-pack, the Shelley Bean poster. You can also become a member of the fan club and much more, thanks to our sponsors. Anything that I haven't gotten to that you would like to get to this week? Anything on your mind?
Well, I want our fans to start thinking about the draft a little bit. I think this is an exciting time. Women's college basketball is really, really good. When you tune in and watch games, I think there's some really quality play in the Pac-12. The Oregon-Stanford game, which ended up not being a great game. I think they lost by 40. I think the worst loss in Tara Vanderveer's career at Stanford. And but I think overall, like you saw the UConn-South Carolina game on Monday. So every week there's some really quality games and a lot of prospects to comb through. And but I just think our fan base, I think, would enjoy sort of, following, maybe doing their own sort of mock drafts and going, look at players and where you think they might fall. I think that's really interesting. That's what we do on the men's side. I'd like to see us do that on the women's side and really get that interest and knowledge of the college game and get that momentum as we go into the draft in April and then our training camp starts just a few weeks after that.
Do you know Tara
Vanderveer?
Yeah,
I do.
She I remember being on the West Coast once and picking up, I think it was San Francisco Chronicle, and I think it was Scott. I don't know why I remember things like this, but I remember there's a Scott Ostler column where Stanford basketball was at the Final Four, and like somebody wandered into a ballroom at the team hotel, and there's Tara Vanderveer sitting there playing piano.
Yep.
Just playing beautifully. And that detail always stuck in my head.